The African Union says there is need for a peaceful solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This comes after a second request for talks by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was made, bringing the AU's position on the conflict to question. Dalvaris Unguju is an expert in international relations. There are several variables. The first variable is that the Ukrainian President Zelensky realized that a good part of the African states feel much closer to Russia than to Ukraine, and this is an element that is very important in international forums, especially the United Nations, where there is a strong desire on the part of Ukraine and certain Western countries to isolate Russia. And an important element on which this person should lean on is the African continent. I think this is one of the reasons why President Zelensky is doing everything he can to be able to speak before the African Union. The Ukrainian president has spoken with major Western governments and parliament and continues to seek the African support. The war in his country has now surpassed a 2-month mark. For me, there is no problem to listen to a protagonist in a state crisis, in a state of war. We can listen to the different protagonists, but still, if we look at the timing of the contact between the authorities of the African Union and the protagonist of the crisis, we realize that the president of the African Union, the Senegalese president Macky Sall, has taken his phone and it is he who takes the initiative. He called Vladimir Putin to discuss the crisis with him and did not call President Zelensky. But it was almost a month later when President Zelensky realized that the trend on the African continent is much closer to Russia, and then he takes up his phone, calls Macky Sall, and expresses the will to speak before the African Union. It is not yet known whether President Zelensky's request will be granted by the AU, but if it does, there are questions on him being able to rally the support of neutral countries to his cause. If we had to rely only on the word of Zelensky, it would be extremely difficult. But given that there are a number of Western powers that exert pressure on states, there is a chance that he may be able to gather a certain amount of support. With some African nations extending ties to Russia lately, analysts fear having a collective support of the African Union may be unattainable for Ukraine.
And Mr. General Secretary, could you please tell